right. I am here with Chris Hallberg, and he is the CEO and founder of Business Sergeant. How's it going, Chris?
Doing awesome today, Steve. Thank you for having me on your program.
Yeah. I'm excited to really get into a lot of the tactical aspects of exiting. But before we get there, let's talk about your background. How did you get started?
Yeah, kind of an uncommon background. I spent my first career in public service in a number of uniforms. So I served 9 years in the Army National Guard Military Police Corps and full-time as a corrections sergeant and deputy sheriff. So I wore a bunch of uniforms. In the 1990s, got all that polyester. In 1999, got into sales management, sales executive, then became a business owner a couple of times over, sold a couple, crashed a couple, the typical ups and downs of an entrepreneur. Sold my last business in 2011, an energy efficient remodeling company in the Twin Cities. It gets cold there, so having lots of insulation was good. And that was in 2011, and I've been coaching other entrepreneurs and their leadership teams since then.
Very nice, very nice. So let's start unpacking some of the exit that you went through briefly, and then I want to go through some of the sort of collaborative exits we could talk about that you've gone through and some of the mistakes there. So with the business that you sold, what was that process like? How long did it take to go through?
It was super fast because I was super motivated to go do something else. I only had the company for a couple of years. I'm a visionary, not an integrator. So like operating the business all day and then going out at night and doing sales, I really enjoyed building it. But running it was like, geez, I don't know if I want to operate this. I just wanted to build it. So quite frankly, the exit was quicker. I probably left a ton of money on the table for just the expediency of having a joint venture to immediately get into. So I would say it was fast and furious, and basically went to a business broker where I was probably on the bigger side of a business broker, even though it was only a couple of years, because of the revenue was several million in revenue just in the first year. So I would say don't do what I did. Actually be strategic and hang on to it for another 6 to 9 months to get the right unit economics. So my exit was expedient. It wasn't optimized. Since then, I've helped, I don't know, literally dozens, 20, 30, 40 probably is a realistic number of people exit. And I've seen similar mistakes, but I've also seen people really be intentional and strategic about an exit. So I've learned a lot since mine back in 2011. I would definitely have done it completely different, knowing what I know today.
Nice, very nice. So let's talk about preparing across all the exits you've been part of and your own exit. Let's talk about how to get prepared.
Yeah. So what is the acquiring authority getting? If it's you and your charisma, your personality, your Rolodex, your handshakes, when you're not there, who's going to stay with the business? Continuity, back to your leadership team, your managers, golden handcuffs, right? What are they buying? They're buying a reputation. They're buying a brand. They're buying systems. They're buying a customer database. That's what they're buying. So having the business not fall down after the founder leaves is important. That's why I coach my clients to take the owners all the way out, 9 months to a year from our projected sale date. Therefore, they can just get all of their money, and because they're not involved weekly or monthly or even quarterly to some degree, that's just a check to them, and probably some golden handcuffs to the leadership team. For the teams that don't operate that way, you're going to stay for a year or two to help transition all of those entanglements out. So the phenomenon is you now have a $30 million check in the bank and a boss. And that's a very weird phenomenon for my clients. And the truth is, you don't take yourself out, you make that part of the deal. That complicates things. because having, a bunch of millions in the bank and a boss is a very weird place for an entrepreneur to be after making all the calls, and then not having to check for any spend over $500 feels a little stifling. And then you watch the new operator have different core values or different ways, and you know what I mean? It's kind of like putting your kid up for adoption when they're 14. And you know what I mean? And still being there. It's a very weird thing for an entrepreneur. So like my biggest advice is it takes a couple of years to package a company for the best possible exit, right? That's how long it takes to install a business operating system and make sure we got all the right people in the right seats and the owner's not counted on for weekly input. That is the best piece of advice I can give. And the owners that take that, and we intentionally over a couple of year period optimize the business, and they're not a part of it, that's a beautiful exit for them. Mm-hmm. All the money and knowing the company is in good hands versus like being forced into the change that happens post sale and probably not agreeing with everything and having to put on this is the new way phase. That's really hard. And I would say, oh boy, probably at least it's over 50% in my experience. They don't even get the bite of the second apple because things are not what they said they were going to be. And there's some contention and they end up just saying, whatever, I'll leave. And that second bite is never taken. And I don't know. I would argue sometimes if the acquiring authority has a lot of experience, that might even be part of the playbook, quite frankly. So that's why understanding that in the M&A game, boy, you think business is cutthroat. Wait till you get a deal on the table and the crazy stuff that happens in the last week of due diligence. It'll make even the most wild business operator blush, the stuff that happens in deal making.
Yeah, we've heard it described on the pod before as the fish and chip model, where you fish with a big valuation and then you chip away as much as you can, and then that last week is the final big chips, kind of taken out of the value that you get to almost to a mental place where you're like, you know what? Yeah, thank you so much for taking this business off my hands. It gets to like a weird mental state that a lot of entrepreneurs face. And it's kind of a good segue into timing. You've seen a lot of exits. You've been part of them. When's the right time to sell?
Well, it's the best time to plant a tree, right? 20 years ago, next best time today, right? I don't know if a business has that if we can repurpose that analogy, but like, if you're starting to think this is no longer fun, I would ask yourself, is it because of like where the business is, right? Like sometimes our passions leave us and everything kind of runs a course. A business without an exit plan is a profitable hobby. So I think an exit plan, needs to be discussed yearly, right? And then quarterly inputs are made based on whatever that yearly decision is. That's usually how I coach it. But at the end of the day, as soon as you realize that the team would be better served by new energy, and as soon as you realize that you've done what you've done, and if you're in a position to go do other things and that's what you want to do, your job, depending on how much you love your people, is selling it to the right buyer. Not just, am I going to sell is usually the first question one asks. And then who am I going to sell to is the second question. And I would argue that second question is it can be very difficult. The first one, that's a gut feeling. If you don't see yourself here in 2 years loving it, let's start to optimize the company for exit. In my experience, it's at least a 12 to 24 month path to really like invest a couple $100,000 and get several million back. So I think it's one of the highest ROI things in business is to package or optimize a company for exit, because it's a year or two finite number of dollars, and the ROI on that is some of the best returns I've ever seen. So I think like like if you don't see yourself doing this in another year or two, it's time to start having these discussions, because that's the timeline we work on. If you, like me, just say, "Oh God, that was exciting! Wow, I can't believe we did that during the recession too." The Great Recession was in 2008 when I did this, and companies were going out of business that were several generations. I was like the number one dealer in the construction, the energy efficient remodeling. Like, what happened? Where'd you come from? Everyone is having trouble. Well, it's because I did things differently, and I saw an opportunity with tax credits and more efficient things. So like, I couldn't have done what I did if it wasn't for the tough times we were in and the fuel there. So some of it's like, you got to think about like market timing. Mm-hmm. Let's say you own an event business and Corona hits. How valuable is an event business, in 2021 versus 2012? I think the valuations and the risk exposure after like the virus, like when the virus hit, and 80% of my clients are like, "Oh, we don't know what we're doing here," right? That was a scary time. So after that happened, I started thinking like any other entrepreneur, what are some recession-proof industries? Maybe I should target those people and work with them. So if this happens and we have COVID-21 or 24, hopefully we never have COVID-26, I won't see the volatility in those people. So like, let me take that a step further and say, if you're going to start a business or you have a business, what's the trend line? AI is highly disruptive to a bunch of different industries, but in an industry where you still need relationship building, discernment, and that human touch, AI is not messing with that. So like, we can even talk about AI, optimizing workflows, replacing repetitive things with AI. AI-assisted humans, right, are super profitable versus humans that are, rejecting AI. So what space you're in, what the trend in that space is for the next 3 to 4 years, I think that's really important. Meaning, if the trend doesn't look great in 5 years, now is a great time to exit right now. If you're in a space where AI is enabling and accelerating, the best time for this industry might be 2 years from now. So selling now, you'd be leaving a bunch of money on the table. So that's a tough question, because the world we live in, especially in business with technology, everything's been interrupted. My client asked me the other day, "Hey, Chris, in 3 years, what do you think this is going to look like?" I'm like, this is a wild guess, because nobody knows this, especially not this guy, right? So this is what I think it could look like. Here's a high, medium, and low, what I think. And I don't know how accurate that is, because look at like AI videos as an example. Last summer, I did some AI videos to do a trailer launch for my new software app. We're pretty proud of how it turned out, but just last week, they released a product where I could just, instead of 200 hours of painstaking video editing, I could have just asked the new app to do it, and it would look 10 times better with 100 times less effort. 5 or 6 months. And the video we make looks childish today compared to the new models, even though we were very proud of it in July. Yeah. So like, that's a great example. There's so much interruption right now. It's insane.
For sure. Across the whole productivity landscape, like everything that you touch, everything that you're using as a tool. I've experienced that too. Just in the last 6 months alone, it's crazy how fast of a clip it's moving at. So I'd love to sort of unpack weaknesses around leadership, because this is something that comes up pretty frequently. But what do you see with weaknesses that come up during due diligence, whether it's through the processes that people have made or just leadership in general?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Everyone thinks they're much better at their job than they actually are, right? We all have a pretty inflated self assessment, right? My process is infallible. The due diligence come and they're like, "What, do you do this with crayons?" So, right, you get the investment bankers and the spreadsheet ninjas, and let's just say they don't hire warm, fuzzy conversational type people to come look at your business. Like, again, that might be just part of the thing where, like, no matter what you do, it's like, ugh, this is very unsophisticated, right? So I think understanding the dance, the game, like, so back to leadership, if you're going to make the decision to create a deck and meet with brokers or investment bankers or whoever you're going to exit with, it depends on the size of the business, right? Because you could be in a platform, right? M&A has different places, right? Main Street businesses, right, have platforms, whereas enterprise businesses have, IPOs and investment bankers and boards and all that other kind of stuff. So I think once you've made the decision, hey, I'm going to do this, let's look at the pitfalls. And if we know what those pitfalls are, we can strategically just kind of take them out early on and say, I'm going to sell the company. Let's put it up to market and let's try to sell this in 6 months. Like that is probably, unless you're in one of those spaces that's being interrupted, unless there's real urgency in the market, you shouldn't have a lot of urgency. You should focus on making sure the pillars of the company are strong. Oh, by the way, I've also had, people bring me on to, optimize their business for sale. And we've done such a good job. They've decided not to list it because it's running well and, removing some wrong people and bringing the fun back and the profitability back. But at the end of the day, treating your company as it's saleable any day is a good strategy. Like franchise prototype. Think about like Michael Gerber, E-Myth. Building your business as if it's going to be franchisable. Mm-hmm. That's the advice back to leadership is doesn't matter even if you're looking to exit or not. If we build it like we're going to sell it with the intent of selling it someday for the maximum sales price. Because, oh, by the way, you could spend 5 years building a business and sell it poorly. You could spend 5 years building the business and sell it magnificently. And the only difference, right, was that intent and that strategy and then the exact time frame of working hours. So this is where I'm saying, like, strategy comes first, execution comes second, and then we think about culture, the third value generator. If your company has a world-class, best place to work, 92% engaged, waiting list to work there kind of culture, your business is going to be worth a lot more than a high turnover, churn and burn model. So again, whether you're going to sell it or you're not going to sell it, the work that I do works in either eventuality. And the neat thing is the businesses that run smoothly also sell quite smoothly, because if you have a 27% EBITDA, it's kind of hard for the bean counters to come in here and chisel down. Like, hey, we're best in class profitable. So I get your whole job is to diminish us. We've got other people looking at this deal. So advice number 2, back to leadership, is multiple horses. Because if you only have one horse in the race and they start to chisel at the last week, you're in a bad spot. If you have 3 or 4 people getting down to the line and you go as late as you can with as many as you can, somebody starts acting crazy, just say, we're done. I've got 3 other people that aren't trying this. So I'm going to give you one more chance to come back to the reality table, or off you go. And having that position when someone starts to chisel is to say you're not going to allow it, that is a tremendously powerful position to be in, versus the industry is going down, our valuation is going down. Now, again, like you said, Steve, thank you for stealing my company. I will accept this check.
Yeah.
So that's that's a long-winded answer, right? Multifaceted, but like I think like intent and a plan. Yeah. And understanding what the triggers are, right? And when you have low turnover, high profit, low customer churn, there's nothing to chisel.
Yeah.
Or there's insignificant things to chisel. When your business metrics are not going up at a 32% degree for the entire due diligence, then you're going to have problems. That's part of the playbook once again. But if your fundamentals are strong, you can tell anyone to go pound sand, because you already know the average company in my space operates here. I'm 42% above that. So we'll be having none of that.
Yeah.
Chiseling talk. Thank you.
Yeah. I like the thinking like a franchise mindset. That's a really kind of good framework, a mental model there. And also probably one of the few on the pod that has brought up like culture at the company being like a core pillar, which is super important with, longevity of a business. And like going through a transaction can be super bumpy for teams. So if there's a strong culture as a buyer, that is valuable to be able to know like, all right, these people are, they're going to benefit from this in this way. And I like that, that's part of what makes valuation good, which is a good segue into how to drive up that multiple. So I think one of the biggest questions is around valuation. Like how do people reach it? What are some levers that they can pull to drive that valuation up? In your experience, what have you sort of seen that really does the biggest for pushing up the valuation?
Yeah, without being promotional, a business operating system. So I've coached EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, for almost 12 years now. And you're going to get an extra multiple 2 to 3 just by having everything in an OS. And an operating system, like think about your phone, whether you're an Android or an Apple, the operating system is what gets the Snapchat ears and the camera right to work together. It's a paperweight without an OS. A lot of companies have an accounting system, perhaps a marketing system, but not enough have an operating system to run. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we do? Who with? By how much? When? Right people share the core values. Right seats want to have the capacity to do the work. We have data. We have weekly activities. We have monthly results. We have issues, long-term issues, short-term issues. They're just opportunities, things to solve. Process, like really dialing up the process, having a playbook. The process is probably one of the biggest value levers, right? They're buying a system that operates, not we have to come here and then give some intelligent thought to this, but we're buying this business cheap because it's unsophisticated, and they're going to add sophistication. Like we're talking about selling businesses, right? So this is the age-old thing. Are you going to add the value and then sell it? Or are you not going to add the value, get it bought cheap, and then the next guy adds the value to it? So like my point is just, why don't you add the value? And then lastly, traction component, right? 90-day world, creating rocks. Rocks is a term coined by the late Dr. Stephen Covey. He talks about big priorities, strategic initiatives outside the day-to-day will give us new capacities, new capabilities. So like my point is, if you have an operating system and it's high quality and everyone follows it, you have a business that knows who they are, what they do, why they do it, who with, by how much. These are the behavioral. You have a strong culture because we've removed the people who don't value what we value in a business, right? We don't have to be overly inclusive. It's a privately held company. If you're not a hard worker, and we are, you can't work here. Like lazy people apply across the street. It's perfectly fine over there. So like, I think just nailing the business. And if you're not running an operating system, even if it's one of your own design, like there are other ones out there, I'm not here to convince you that's the right one. What I'm saying is a company that has answered those questions and are willing to hold people accountable to that. And just the real big aha on a business operating system is I can say, here it is. It's right here. Opt 100% into this thing or opt 100% out of it. And when I have a large percentage, like 85, 90% of the people at the company who all want to be here for the same reason to do what we do, and they all love it, that company is going to be profitable. That company is going to be low turnover, and the multiple on that is going to be 2 to 3 multiples higher than a company that is basically you're just getting bought for a list. Mm-hmm. You're getting bought because you're a logo, right? You understand? Really a top tier exit where the owner gets to choose from a bunch of high bidders and find the cultural buyer that's going to keep that family together. That's what I think is like what a founder should be. So when I bring up culture, you build an amazing culture and you sell it in the middle of the night, you don't tell anybody, and then the new owners come in, like, that's not a great vibe. So I also think being transparent as you can, right? Like, it's usually not a great idea to say, hey, everybody, we're up for sale for all the 150 reasons. However, what are all these guys sniffing around our finances for? Like, people know. So to just not tell people anything. Like, I have a founder, well, I have to be careful here, but so I have a bunch of founders who are always, right, 30% of it in all businesses are prepping for sale or will be for sale. And they're like, what should I do? I'm like, it's growth capital. You might not sell a majority of the company. You might just take 20%. Well, I haven't decided. Well, great. Tell everybody you're going for some growth capital. And at the very end, if you decide to give up 100%, that's a last minute decision. Mm-hmm. Like, no reason to, like, that's a decision you make. Just let people know, hey, everybody was doing this. Life hit me and I made this decision. And I hope you're okay with that. Like, that's a way better way to go about it. But to think that no one's going to know you're getting looked at, like, I see that from time to time, that can cause damage. So they're like, we have to talk about why we're doing the deal. I just recommend it's growth capital. What percentage? That is one of the final decisions that's made, right? Yeah. So if that isn't, if that's not 100% known, you're not lying to people to say you're getting growth capital. It could be exit capital, it could be growth capital. Who knows? So I do think you mentioned you message so people aren't freaked out by it. Mm-hmm. They also have to explain why we're using staples, and it's because we're trying to skip the carbs. We're going to a business bodybuilding show and we're trying to be 10%. I want to see the abs of this business is why we're doing that. So I also think some transparency is also important. I think people try to be secretive and that gets out and that really breaks trust and can do more damage than good.
For sure. And often, myself included and many entrepreneurs, it's just so lonely and hard to not talk about those types of things that are happening to you, like the deal in motion that you're working on for months, in many cases. And I think that the growth capital thing is brilliant. I think that's a really smart knowledge nugget for everybody that's listening to this, because it's true. It truly is. Like, the percentage comes later. So I think that that's very smart, a good tactic. So let's get to the finale. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell Chris 10 years ago?
Be intentional. Ask yourself, like, timeline. Like, I had somewhere to go, so I just did a quick deal. But I knew I was going to take less because I just expedient. So that was a deal that I made. Knowing what I know now, I would have slowed things down. I would have had a different representative, and I would have entertained way more people versus the first person to come along with a checkbook who wanted it. And right, you can. So I would say slow down, be intentional, and ask yourself really what does your life require? If it's we're going to Mexico to go fishing, I'm going to be a charter boat captain. I can't wait. Just get rid of it and go live your life. If you could take another 6 months to a year to optimize it, 2 years for full optimization, and the ROI on that is super attractive, and that's the timeline that works for you, then be more intentional. So I think I rushed into one thing when I should have taken a little bit more time, and the time and effort I now realize, my gosh, it would have been another 100 hours of my time, 200 hours of my time, and it would have been, high six figures, maybe low seven figures in actual revenue. Mm-hmm. So I think at the time it would have been worth it to do it the other way.
Great advice. Love that. Slow down for everybody listening. Take it slow and more methodical. Really like that. All right. So what are you working on now? We got a couple of different things that you got in motion.
Yeah. So my gig, I'm a leadership team coach, CEO coach. I teach EOS as an EOS implementer. I do quite a bit of that. I also have a software business called Go Expand, and it's an agentic AI powered, fully connected business operating system suite. And we also add in 6 or 7 powerful people and operational tools into that. So it's a fully curated tech stack, an all-in-one to help you align and synchronize all the moving parts of your business. And then lastly, Business Sergeant is a community, a free community for veterans. And what we do is we train folks that have been out for a long time, still in, just recently got out, business skills, translate their military skills into civilian skills. Have a leadership academy we send them through, an online course, and then we have a community. And we're doing a lot of wellness stuff. 22 veterans a day committing suicide is 22 too many. So a lot of our programming goes into wellness. And ultimately, we place these superhumans, many of them special operations folks with millions of dollars worth of training and experience. You cannot grow in the civilian business world. So like if you want a Navy SEAL, you want a Green Beret at your company, it's called the halo effect. You take a Green Beret and put them in any part of a company, like within weeks, like everything around them starts to become awesome. So like most of the people we place do not have direct experience, but they can figure anything out. So unless you're splitting atoms or nuclear fission, our candidates can just learn what you do in a quarter or two, but your very best leaders wouldn't pass the first week of what our guys have been through for, in many cases, 20 years. So the Business Sergeant thing is hot and heavy, and the community's growing, and we're making placements. So anyone who wants a great leader who has been forged in a way that is a very rare thing, we can find those people and give them their next mission with you.
Very cool. Very cool. Love that. And where can people learn more about those?
Yeah, that's at Business Sergeant. So bizsgt.com. You can just go EOS/Chris Hallberg and find my EOS page, and then Go Expand is goexpand.com. The 3 places where people can find me. And then anyone listening wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's an easy way. Send me a message, let me know you heard me, and would love to follow you back.
Right on. Right on. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Chris mentioned will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Great to have me. I had a great time and I really appreciate it.